So good morning, everybody, and I'd like to welcome you to our monthly webinar. This month we are looking at the Opera 3 Nominal Ledger as a high-level overview, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit about the module and find some interesting areas that you perhaps are not using that could be used going forward. So, my name is Bruce. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director at Operational Accounting Systems, as most of you know. It sounds like I just do sales and marketing, but that's really not the case. So hopefully with these webinars, the idea is that you learn something new and hopefully take away something that you could introduce in your own organization. A little bit of an agenda for the morning. I'm going to have a brief look at the module, the Nominal Ledger. We're going to look at the order of setup, really just some settings in there, which is important to know about. We'll look at the maintenance, utilities, the processing, and very lastly, we'll look at the reporting areas within the module. So firstly, the nominal ledger, what is it? It's the heart of our company's financial management. It provides a comprehensive and an organized means of controlling our financial accounts. It also provides complete control over the structure, the definition, the creation and the maintenance of the whole chart of your nominal accounts. Budgets can be applied at account, at cost center level, and variance analysis can be reported. The module includes a number of reports to monitor activity in the module and the transactions posted in other modules. A reporting facility is also provided for creating and printing your management accounts. The nominal ledger can be used on a standalone basis or in conjunction with other modules. Transactions from other modules update the nominal ledger either in batches, as and when required, or in real time. Real-time processing, which can be switched on in the Options tab on the System Maintenance Company Profiles form, updates the nominal ledger immediately. Now, I just want to mention as we go through our module today, my settings is based around the fact that I have real-time processing, real-time nominal, as well as open period accounting switched on in my system. So how is our nominal ledger structured? So we have our journals, we have our rectify, which is rectifying our journals. We have our view functionality, we have matrix reports, we have reports, utilities, and maintenance. So how does the nominal ledger link together? The sales ledger, purchase ledger, stock control, cash book, fixed assets, and the payroll modules. The cash book is automatically linked to the nominal ledger when it is used. The other modules only link to the nominal ledger if the respective option is ticked on in the System Maintenance Company Profiles form. It means that you don't have to link these ledgers to your nominal, which means you would have to physically post journals to update the nominal. But if the link exists, your nominal obviously are updated in real time, depending on how your settings are. The advanced nominal used to be part of Opera 2 as a separate entity that you had to buy, but with Opera 3, that is part of the system as standard. The advanced nominal ledger offers advanced analysis, reporting, inquiry, and drill down capabilities. It's intended for customers who require more sophisticated or flexible financial analysis. The feature offers 2 extra dimensions, or floating dimensions, as we call them. That's not tied to the nominal ledger account as cost centers, for example, are. They are optional and therefore make the advanced nominal more adaptable. When analysis data, there is greater choice and flexibility by using cost centers, departments, projects, and the nominal account. So as you can see in my example here, I just want to show open period accounting, a real-time update of nominal being ticked on, but also the project and department area being ticked on. Now, this is the advanced nominal area we are talking about. By ticking these on, you then have the ability to set up a project and a department in your system. And you can also rename those dimensions to whatever you want. So the standard is being named as project or department, but you can call it anything else you want. It could be a person's name, a product name, or an actual project, whatever you want. That is then applied to your nominal accounts when you post transactions, pulling data together for these projects and departments. I want to very briefly talk about what open period accounting is. Open period accounting is the optional feature that allows you to control whether your nominal ledger accounting periods are open or closed for new postings. Accounting periods can be kept open as long as necessary, but are normally closed once management accounts have been presented for the financial year. If open period accounting is used, each transaction that is posted in the application has a nominal ledger transaction date, which determines the accounting period that is posted to and the period name that is displayed at the time of posting. So really what it's telling us is that with open period accounting in play, we have a financial calendar where we can set our calendar up for our finances in the past and into the future. We can have our periods open into the future, which means we can post to any of those periods. We're not tied to a single period. The date becomes very important because that's how it decides where it belongs to, in which period it belongs to. And you can control whether you open or close periods. Let's say you need to go back a period to post something or go back a year to post something from the audit. Then you have the ability to open the period and block it again after you've done so. In turn, Pegasus and the system would do the correct thing with any to date and brought forward figures that has been changed due to that opening and closing of the period as part of that process. So in the recommended order of setup, there's a couple of things to think about. So if exchange rates, for example, are being used, then the relevant currencies has to be created for our foreign currencies customers. If VAT rates needs to be used, we have to again create the relevant rates within VAT processing. These are all not things that you wouldn't do in the nominal ledger, but does affect how it works. In our company profile, we have to select the relevant links between our modules and the appropriate options. This is where we just select whether it's open period accounting, real-time update, or whether we use the advanced nominal options. If we have EC-VAT, then we have to specify a home currency. And in the nominal ledger, in the maintenance, utilities and processing budgets needs to be done and set up for us to be able to use and manage the module correctly. So defining the structure of our nominal ledger. At the top, we have our account classes. Now, these define the nature of the accounts for classification of the balance sheet and the profit and loss accounts. Under balance sheet classes, we can usually see things like fixed assets, current assets, capital and reserves and liabilities. And under profit and loss classes, we can see things like expenses and income. Underneath our classes, we have our types, which we'll look at in a moment within our maintenance area. And underneath our types, we have our subtypes. Underneath that, we have our nominal account, so our whole structure, which has been applied by a type and a subtype. And then we've got our cost centers, projects and departments, which are all optional and additional areas that can be used within the system, giving us effectively 7 levels of analysis within our nominal structure. So that was really just a brief kind of talk about the recommended order of setup. And in part of that setup, we'll be looking at the maintenance area because that is where you set up the bulk of the information within your system. So first thing we're going to be looking at is our cost centers. Now, well, the cost centers, if you select to use cost centers in nominal, you've switched it on in the options in the company profile tab, then you can apply cost centers to your nominal accounts within your nominal ledger structure. These cost centers, when you have applied them, you might have 4, 5, 6 different cost centers to your accounts, which means you can then make your nominal account a distribution account. And what does that mean? It means that you can set a distribution factor for your cost centers, and when you post something to the main account, it would automatically distribute that amongst the cost centers based on the pre-selection that you have done. We have our types. So in our types, you can see we have things like our subtype, sorry, our balance sheet suspense and that kind of thing that sits in our type of accounts. Again, the type of account is important because this is how we break down our nominal ledger structure. Underneath our types, we have our subtypes. The subtypes is based around the type, and for each type you select different kinds of subtypes. It allows you to break out how you post your information to a single nominal account. Then you have the bank account area in the maintenance. Now, I'm just showing you the screen here. And for those of you who use Cashbook, you'll recognize the screen looking pretty much the same as the Cashbook screen. The difference is if Cashbook is not in play, you set your bank accounts up in the maintenance area in the nominal. However, if you do have Cashbook, this message you see here is the message that will pop up on your screen because you have to use Cashbook to define your bank accounts if it's being used. Then we use our budget factors. The budget factors command is to define controls for the allocation of budget amounts over the accounting periods for the nominal accounts. The annual budget amount for a nominal account is allocated according to a factor number for each period. The factors must be allocated to that 100% of the annual amount is distributed over the periods. You can choose factors that define equal period splits, uneven splits, or pre-calculated percentages. Well, what does this mean? It means that we can set factors up for our budgeting, and when we set a budget figure for our year, the budget would be distributed based on how we've set the distribution to be. The example on screen is an equal split over the 12 periods, but you could, for example, have a quarterly split that's 001, 001, or you could have different values in each of the periods. It could be seasonal, up and down. In the middle of the year, it's more than at the end of the year, for example. So it's all just different ways of setting up these budget factors. Reporting codes. So reporting codes are used to create tables of reporting codes and descriptions. You can assign up to 5 codes to each nominal account using the list boxes under reporting codes on the general tab of the nominal accounts form. We'll see that later. You can use the report codes as a range options when defining reports using the matrix reports command. So reporting codes in the instance of the demo system, they've used people. So you can apply people to your nominal code structure and use that to pull out information. The first of our advanced nominal analysis codes is our project or dimension 1. And as you can see, there's a debit and credit budget area available in there. That is only available when you have a cost center budget and a project budget area selected in the set options. Otherwise, it would be grayed out. Exactly the same for the department area or dimension 2 within the system. And as you can see on this area, it's grayed out, and that's grayed out because summary budgets for cost center 2, summary budgets for dimension 2 is not allowed. And the last thing in here is our views. And for those of you who have joined me before, all the modules have these views in them. It allows us to very quickly set a view of our data for us to look at and to analyze using the view command in the system. So the things we can break down is type, subtype, cost center, project, department, year, period, and account plus cost center. So we'll go in a moment. We'll have a look at how that works and how it fits in to each other. And then in the last instance, we'll very quickly look at the accounts where you create them and what you can do in them and what they are all about. I think at this point, I'm going to pop over to my Opera. And we're going to have a look at these maintenance areas we have just looked at. So what I wanted to mention again to you was these cost centers. So as you can see in my list here, I have cost centers set up. I forecast this is in this system, and that would be applied to my nominal ledger structure if I want cost centers to be applied within there. And how can I see those cost centers? If I open my accounts area and I find my list, for example, I can just come down to the staff loans, for example. As you can see, staff loans, there are cost centers for each of them, because if I post anything to staff loans, I want the cost centers to be applied. But if you see something like trade creditors or accruals or provision for bad debts, for example, no cost centers is affected there. So we don't need to set them up. We only set them up for the accounts that they relate to. One of the other maintenance areas I wanted to look at was these budgeting factors. And the reason I want to look at the budgeting factors is because we've already got quite a few set up, and I just wanted to explain to you how they work. So let's look at the seasonal sales distribution, for example. So as you can see, the weighting of how it's distributed is uneven over the year. It means that from a seasonal point of view, from period 8 to period 10, I obviously have a much higher demand than I have in the other periods. So this is a factor I can set up, and when I apply £20,000 to the sales budget for this specific budget factor, it will take the 20,000 and it'll break it down in those factors for those 12 periods, saving me to individually have to type in all those budgets against anything. This can be used for budgets on accounts, on cost centers, and on the advanced nominal for project and departments. And the last area I want to look at the maintenance here is views, because I think everybody should be using this to set their own views up. Again, you can see I've got a list view here. I've got several things within my list view already up. I have a view there that I have set up myself before. I call it my view. And when I look at my view, I want to see first my year, then I want to see the period. I then want to see the type, subtype, and the account it belongs to. And that would be the 5 levels of information I want to see when I go into this view, when I look at the view later on. So as anything else in Opera, you know, by creating anything new, you can really just do that. Create a new view, use these levels to select how you want to see it. I don't know, let's go with account, type, and subtype there, and save that. And then when we come back to our views later on, this area here, we'll be able to have a look at that view and see how it impacts on our information. What I want to do now is open the accounts window and open something like that for us to have a look at. So this is the last area in maintenance I want to look at, and the area we look at this is because this is really where we see our nominal structure in one area defined, so we can find the accounts we want to look at, interrogate, etc. On the list view, I've got the full set of accounts set out in account number order from top to bottom. It's very important in Pegasus to decide on this numbering structure in advance, because it decides on how you would see your data, especially with the type and the subtype at play. So what do I see on my screen here? I can see, obviously, if I have the account number and if I have a cost center applied to it, I will see both there and named next to it. Then I see the description of the account. Then I see my type and my subtype that sits within the in my area. I can here come in and overwrite it, but the type and the subtype, as you can see, the type is fixed assets and the subtype is freehold buildings in this instance. It also shows me there what it is. The reporting codes I spoke about earlier on, you can apply these codes here to the nominal ledger if you need to, or not. In this instance, I have no codes on there. Then also I can see some financial information about the account. So the year-to-date figures, the previous year-to-date, and if I've done anything in the period I'm in, I will see period-to-date figures in here. And then on here, I've got a couple of tick boxes. That is important information. I've got an open item tick box. This option determines if the detail of outstanding transactions is retained for previous periods. If the option is cleared, outstanding transactions are accumulated into a period total when the period end command is used. So what does that really mean in terms? It means that the transactions is consolidated into a single line transaction and you lose the detail behind it if it's not an open item. Summary transfer, that determines whether the transaction details from the sales ledger and the purchase ledger are consolidated into one transaction when you do your transfers. Post comment, an option that determines whether a journal line comment must be entered when you use the journals command. And a private account is if access to private accounts are granted, then you would be able to access that account if it's a private account. If not, the account won't show for you if you don't have access to private accounts, for example. Now, in the action button, we've got our view area, and this is just where it breaks down our transactions in the periods, the year and the periods we're in. This is drill down functionality. I can click on any of them. It takes me to the transactions for that, and I can click on it again, and it will show me the details of the journal details, where that information comes from. And if there is an image of the journal in a PDF saved, then I will be able to view the image through my action button there. So a way of looking at my data and interrogating the data that I see in here. We'll have a little bit look at the accounts a little bit later on again. So that is the maintenance area. That is exactly what it says, where we maintain our modules and settings within our module so that we can select those areas in other areas within the nominal ledger. I'm going to move on to the utilities, and utilities, as you know, is probably the area where most of you run your system from. So first thing to look at in our utilities is our set options. Now, the set options decides a number of things for our module and settings that we set up within here. It's an essential part of our module. So we break it down in things that we see on here, like our number of periods. For example, this can be up to 24 periods. Mine is grayed out because I use open period accounting, and therefore my calendar is grayed out there too. If it's not grayed out, you have the ability to overwrite the number of periods in there to be able to do the right thing if your number of periods in your year have changed, for example. The current period indicates the current open period for your nominal ledger. The current year depicts the current year that you are in for your nominal ledger. The keep transactions is how long, how many years I want to keep my nominal transactions for. When a year end is run, transactions are cleared depending on these settings in here. The same for the keep journal images. The maximum number you can set it to is 9 years. Consolidation company. So if you have a consolidation going off, if you have several companies that you pull data into one group company, for example, then you will set that consolidation company in there. And then when you run consolidation in the system, in the utilities, you will then pull the data together for all these different companies. The next journal and the next journal reference numbers are just the reference numbers and applied. And as you can see, you decide what these are from the start or overwrite them where you are so that they can have in a work in a specific order. Which budgets? So an option that determines whether budgets used in the nominal ledger are original, current or revised budgets. You can select from a list. If you select revised, you can specify revised budgets, but you will be unable to amend the original budget figures. Budgets are maintained using budget command in the action menu associated with the nominal accounts, and we will look at budgets later on. The allow summary cost center budgets. So if you want to put a summary budget on your cost center, then that needs to be ticked on. Otherwise, it would be grayed out, and you would have seen that grayed out against our cost center screen earlier on. The same for project and department budgets. If you want to allow them to be entered, that need to be ticked on. And warn if posting non-current is just a warning that tells us when we post a transaction that it's not in our current period, that it's in a future period. It basically helps us control our postings to get it right from the start. The accounts tab that sits on the set options, well, nominal accounts are defined in here, effectively. You can select nominal accounts from a list in each of the following fields. Each field should be updated with either profit and loss or balance sheet accounts. The help for each field explains which type you must use. So as you can see, it really just defines the nominal accounts that would be affected when for our debtors control, for our creditors control, for suspense accounts, for our profit and loss. If there is a consolidation, we need a consolidation suspense account. When we look at transfers in and out, landed costs in and out, stock costs, landed costs, moving suspense accounts, etc., etc. Goods in, bill of material, work in progress accounts, then this is where we define all those accounts directly from our nominal ledger structure. The financial calendar, when open period accounting uses a calendar where you define your financial years with up to a maximum of 24 periods in each year. You can define a financial calendar for this year, last year, and 3 future years. Each year has a description, a year-end date, and the required number of periods. Each period in the financial year has a start date, a period description that's displayed throughout the application, and an indicator that controls whether transaction postings are allowed in the period. In each financial calendar, you can choose whether an individual accounting period is open, closed, or blocked for postings, as you can see there. So we've got our year, so that's our calendar year. The drop-down box, you can see the calendar for all the 5 years that you're able to have open and a single go. You see the year-end date for the year selected and a description of the year, whatever that might be. And highlighted in the bottom, you will have your 12 to 24 periods, and you'll see the relevant information for each of those periods against here at the top where the start date is, what the period description is, and whether the areas in the system is open or closed or blocked for postings. So I've just looked at those set options and the financial calendar. I mean, it's not really areas where you do settings and change stuff all the time, but it's good to be aware of what happens in there. I'm next going to talk about that area in the block, which is all the kind of transfers. So firstly, we've got a recurring posting, but then we've got a bunch of transfers. Now, as I'm using open period accounting, I cannot run any of the transfers because they become irrelevant when you use open period accounting and real-time updates of the nominal, because as I post a transaction, it hits my nominal immediately. So coming back into my system very quickly, into my utilities, I want to show the post-recurring functionality. So the post-recurring functionality basically is a function that allows me to select, to set up a journal that's going to be posted on a recurring basis, on a monthly basis, for whatever purpose I need to set it up for. As you can see, I've run my system. It's found that there are 2 journals that needs to be posted for this month on a recurring basis for the month of April, and this will just allow me then to select them and to post those journals. Why is that important? Because before I run a period end, I need to make sure that is posted within my system. It also makes sure that if I select the recurring functionality, that I don't forget to post any journals, and then I have to post back to a previous period and that kind of thing. This just allows me to post these journals when I come in here. So very straightforward. You set the journals up, which we'll see in a second later, but it then comes here and it allows you to print the journals, to do whatever you want to, and to post them. And this process of reposting the recurring journals, here we go, is the that is showing me is what is going to debit and credit which accounts, and that would have now posted the journal, and those accounts are immediately updated by that, leaving me able to carry on and doing the other things like my sales ledger transfer, which is the transfer of my sales ledger transactions for the period I'm in. If you don't use open period accounting and real-time update, then this is what you will see. You can run the transfer and report or report only. In my instance, I can't even show you any transactions because on all of them, they're exactly the same. But the same functionality is the same on the sales ledger transfer, the purchase ledger transfer, the cash book transfer, the payroll transfer, the stock transfer, and the fixed asset transfer. Now, that is all the transfers that you would run if you operate a daybook system effectively, where you don't have real-time update of nominal. And there would be information on each of those. You'll run them on a monthly basis for closing down your nominal ledger, making sure all the accounts hits the right period. With open period accounting, that is not so important anymore because it's very driven by what the date is, and therefore the data decides where the account, where the amount goes and which date it hits my figures. At this point, I'm going to briefly talk about the consolidation as well, because consolidation is not really something that most of you will use. I'm not sure. I'm not actually aware that anybody is using that functionality at the moment. So what consolidation gives us, and as you can see, one has not been defined, but what consolidation gives us is the ability to pull together several companies within my system into one. Let's say company A is my mother company, and I've got company B, C, D, and E, which are all the child companies of that. Then I can get company B, C, D, and E all to pull together the figures into company A through the consolidation process. Therefore allowing me to have an overall figure of what my group of companies are doing. I don't have to pull it together in a separate system. That's what the consolidation offers. And you would have seen that in the utilities set options, where we can set a consolidation company. Sorry, just getting a spam call through the phone. So yeah, just wanted to mention that's where you set the consolidation up for this purpose. Now let's pop just back to the presentation for a second. So we've looked at the consolidation. Then we have our bank revaluation. Well, it is what it is. So we use the bank revaluation command to revalue the balances of foreign currency bank accounts where the exchange rate has changed since the last revaluation. It only applies if you have the multi-currency module installed and activated. It is possible to revalue all foreign currency bank accounts or a specific bank account. It's only applicable if you have the foreign currency bank account feature installed. So effectively, as you can see on screen, it allows us to do all the banks or revalue just specific banks and we can report or update and report. And what this will do is it will revalue the foreign currency values based on the latest exchange rate set up in the company. Now, some businesses do this on a daily basis, some do it on a monthly basis, others don't ever change it, have a standard rate and use everything else as exchange gains and losses. And some companies just get it right all the time, exactly what it is at that time of posting. So this just allows you to revalue those foreign currency bank accounts. Rebuilt nominal periods. We use the rebuilt nominal periods to recalculate the nominal accounts balances for each period in the current financial year. You must do this if you change the accounting periods for the current financial calendar on the nominal ledger, for example. If you do not, transactions may not align correctly with the periods in the amended calendar. What does this mean? Some of you would know that you've had the issue before where perhaps the year-end date is one day out or something like that. And when you set the year-end date correctly, the transactions isn't automatically transferred into the period. And by running this rebuild periods, it will take those transactions and just align it to the correct period, making your figures correct. And rebuild history is exactly the same idea, but it's more for your historical data, rebuilding the periods on those. And then our stock revaluation. Well, again, it is what it is. It's revaluing our stock based on certain criteria that we might have set. We can include landed costs in this stock revaluation. So it's an interesting one. I don't know many customers using this functionality, but it is there and it is available, and it will allow you to revalue your stock based on some factors that has been set up in the system. Our period end routine. Well, when we've done everything we've got to do for our nominal ledger, we can run our period end. The period end allows us to block the postings of everything else because nominal is probably the last module we'll close down. So it will allow us to block postings from all the other modules to this period and in nominal when we move this on effectively. There'll be a warning and you won't be able to post to the period if it's blocked for posting. So no one can even accidentally post back to the period. The system will know about that. And then our year-end functionality. Well, once a year we run this, and once a year we all forget how to do it. But the year-end functionality you run once a year when you finished your year off, and in the process you can tell it to do certain things, like from a budgeting point of view, you can tell it to carry forward next year's budget. You can zeroize figures. You can close all the periods, which is exactly what you want to do because you don't want anybody posting anything back to it. Now, it's important to know that even if you close these periods and 2 months later your accountant tells you need to make changes in last year's figures, Opera will allow you to open those periods to post back, and it will take the posting, put it as part of the historical period, and in the process rearrange all the to date and the brought forward figures to be correct based on the posting that has happened there and then. So that is the utilities area to talk about. It's really the area where we run everything in our system effectively. Some settings and the processes that we run to run our module on a monthly basis. I want to look at some processes. Now, in the processing, I'm going to look at budgets, at defining matrix reports. I'm going to look at journal processing and the rectify journal processing functionality. Just looking at the screens, posting some transactions, and just seeing if you understand how that works. So from a budget point of view, that's one of the screens for our budget. So this would be a budget we enter against one of our nominal accounts, and that would allow us to use the budget factors we had before. For example, we can manually enter it in one period at a time, etc. So let's pop over to our Opera. Let's go and put a budget or two in on one's our account. So maintenance accounts, open this a little bit bigger so you can see it better. And within, let's find a sales account. Let's look at sales lease contracts, for example, and let's go into our action button and find our budget. I don't really have a proper budget in here. I'm going to set next year's budget here. Now, manual, from my drop-down box, I can use manual budget, which means I can put £100 in, 100, 100, and as you can see, it builds up my budget period by period as I put it in. I can use one of my factors. I can say I want to equal distribution factor, and if I put 1200, it's going to equal distribute that through everything. I could have what I said to you earlier on. I could add a seasonal sales distribution based on period 8 to 12. It's higher than the rest because there's seasons involved here. I could also use a quarterly distribution. As you can see, every 3 months, I have a figure in there then for my budget. The advertising budget is all over the place, for example, or I could use this expenses seasonal. Again, it's all just different factors that's been set up. I'm going to use that seasonal one in there. But you can also budget current. So what does that mean? So your current budget, I want to use my current budget and increase it by 10%. Then that's what it would do. Current budget was 0, so 10% increase was 0. I can use my actual current plus 10%, and it will look at actuals and increase it by 10%. Or I can use that if I have a revised budgets in here from previous years, I can use a revised budget in there. I'm just going to use my factored budget, put 10 grand in there, and use it as seasonal. And that budget is now set against the account where I can see it, I can go back into it, and I can look at it. And of course, on all my accounts, I have this ability to go and do a budget. Other budget area I want to come back to is maintenance cost centers. Budgets. So as I mentioned before, I can have a cost center, and against each cost center, I can produce a budget. The cost center, I might find, I don't know, let's go to sales, vehicles. So the sales vehicles cost center for 2023 period 1 to 12, I'm going to use a factor. It's cars, so let's put 101,000 in there. Let's factor that as a seasonal sales. And as you can see, against my cost center for leasing, I very quickly put a budget in for the year. It's spread it over there, and I now can commit that budget against the cost center. And if I want to put any more other accounts against the cost center, I can do so in that instance. But I can also carry on with my project and department I mentioned earlier on. So against my project, I can again put a project budget in here. Against any of my nominal accounts, I can press F4 to find it. I can put vehicle sales in there for 2023. Let's just do 2024. This time I'm going to just use a factored of equal distribution and say okay to that. And that's how easy it is to use budgets. When I run the webinar on importing into Opera later on in the year, we will be looking at how you import budgets, because you can use XRL for this purpose as well. You can send budgets back to the system for all these areas we have looked at. And that's really how you create and import and input your budgets within the system. The next area to look at is the matrix reports. Now, I'm not sure if anybody really use these. It's interesting and quite difficult to set up with the best of times. The system comes pre-arranged with some of them already. If you wanted to have a look, you can see how you build them up. But effectively, matrix reports is just a way of pulling data out of your system by creating a report. You basically build the report in an Excel type of format, and then you run the report. Let me show you. So in our matrix reports, we always get our little screen first where we can set reports up. In our list, we'll have some of them set up already. I can look at a monthly comparison for profit and loss, for example. And on the front screen, we have name and what we are pulling out from the report. What we are maximum in rows and columns we want in there. And in our report ranges, we can select report codes, for example, which was mentioned earlier on, if you want to put specific information out. And if you do cost centers, projects, and departments, is how do you want a report of it? Is it a range? Is it all of them, or is it none of them? And then the rest of the information. And in our action button against our design, this is where you can see the design for this. Basically, this is for you to put, well, for whoever creates this for you, to put these values in pulling the information from the system. So this is based around the type and the subtype in our nominal ledger. So our type 30 and our subtype 001. And this is how this report is built up based on our type and subtype effectively, with profits, etc. at the bottom over a year period. And to run our matrix reports, we can do it from report here. And obviously have an output of however we want. That's just our front page. And then it gives us some form of our profit and loss report based on that design that you've just seen there. So there are some standard already in the system set up. You can go and have a play with and look at and how they work. But yeah, this is basically building your profit and loss and your balance sheet items and any other information you might want to pull out through matrix reporting. Of course, all this information through matrix reporting, which is quite an old legacy part of Opera, is now available through our reports or through the view area. So, you know, this is just another way of getting at that. I'm not going to say much more about the matrix reports because I know not many people use them at all. So I want to talk about our journals. So the journal command is really the heart of our nominal ledger. Is where we post our journals, and where if we link to like CIS, for example, journals are pulled into the nominal ledger, whether they need to be posted to go into the system. So there are four types of documents that can be created. First, we have a standard. So these are created within current nominal period, and if balanced, the user is given the option to post and print immediately. These journals would be removed by the nominal period end routine. Then we get this recurring journal here, which is the tick box that's on. These are created within current nominal period and, if balanced, posted at regular intervals determined by a predefined scheduling using the post-recurring utility. So as you can remember, if I set journals up using the recurring functionality, and I then use this post-recurring within my utilities, these are the journals it will pick up for me to post on a monthly or a weekly basis, depending on what I have set it up for. A reversing journal, well, these are created within the current nominal period and, if balanced, posted during the current period and then automatically posted in reverse to the next period during the period end routine. So it basically is a journal I post before period end. As soon as period end is run, the system reverses that journal for me. A retained journal, well, these are entered and if balance posted during the current period, but are retained to be adjusted and used again in subsequent periods. So a retained journal in my instance here might be company card. Retained because those figures are different every month, but the accounting effects are most probably are the same. So on a monthly basis, I can just come in, I can change the details of my journal, make sure it balances and repost that journal. And next month I can do exactly the same, change the details of my journal, come back, delete lines, add lines, whatever I need to do, save it and post it again on a monthly basis. And the VAT analysis there, well, if VAT analysis is at play for the journal, that box can be ticked on so that that can be posted and correctly allocated you for our VAT purposes. So you can see as well within our action button, I want to mention we've got our post journal functionality, post prior functionality. So if I want to post a journal to a prior period, I would use that. And post prior year, well, exactly what it says. If I need to post a journal to my prior year, I would be using that post prior. How do you create a new journal? Well, pretty straightforward. Using the new icon in Opera, we create a new journal. We can name the journal. We can set a date for the journal. The input by, well, it was me. I'm logged in as manager. Is this going to be a recurring journal? Is it going to be a reversing journal? Do I want it retained? Is there VAT at play here? So it can be a recurring journal with VAT and the reverses on a monthly basis, for example. But I'm just going to leave it as a recurring, as a retained journal. If you use foreign currency, well, you can use any of the currencies that you've got set up in here. Saving my journal in here, I can look at my details. I can pick up any of my nominal accounts to post to. Journal has to balance, so I'll just put a couple of lines in there. The second line isn't balancing to the first one. It won't allow me to post the journal. It doesn't balance and therefore cannot be posted. Would you like to save the journal and amend it at a later time? So Opera will allow me to save the journal and to amend it at a later time. I'm just going to go no here. I'm just going to override that with the right value and then I can post it. It's showing me there's no difference. And would I like to post a journal? I'm just going to say yes. Which date am I posting this to? I can post it today. I can post it to future dates. I'm happy with today. And I'm just going to post the journal. And of course, the system would give me a PDF image of the information that I have just posted there. Sorry, it's just posted, thrown the journal onto my other screen. So just show you, it's just showing you what we've really done within the system there. The journals will build up in my list here. I can come back to any of them, deal with them, change them. If period end accruals, I can use my journal and post them again and again. As you can see, it reverses this is one of them reversing ones. So as soon as I've posted it and run a period, it will reverse that accrual, clearing it out again for me. So, and also when it is a recurring journal, I can set the frequency. So weekly, monthly, every period or number of days. The rectified journals functionality, which is pretty good in Opera. Again, it's rather newish. We haven't had this for a long time, but it works very well. It just allows us to pick up a journal and to rectify it and to repost it to a different period, a different account, or different amount, effectively. So it eliminates the need for us to manually go and post a journal to correct another one and then repost it again to something else, to whatever it is we need to do. So let's pop into our rectify functionality, click on that once. So it brings up a selection. So where do I want the information to come from? I'm just going to say select whatever there is. So the journal I've just posted here is 3701. I've realized I've used, I don't know, let's say Freehold Buildings, and I shouldn't have. I can select, or I can rectify the complete journal, which means it's going to rectify the whole journal and post it to a different date. In this instance, do I want to repost it to a different date? Yes or no? I don't know. Let's say I posted it for April month when really it should have been the 1st of May, for example. Okay, now you can see in here, it's rectified that journal and it's reposted it to the date that I selected in that one process of rectify. So again, just run that process. You can see the journal that was rectified, and you can see the reversal of the journal that was posted. The original one, and obviously the journal number. So it gives a full audit trail of what it is we do. I mean, the rectify functionality, well, this is as straightforward as it is. By selecting a journal, you can see details behind the journal that sits there, what they are and what they're not. So a good functionality that can help us out of a pickle sometimes when we've done the wrong thing. So from the processing point, I think that's about as much as I wanted to talk about there, without going in so much detail that we can't deal with it really. What I really going to move on to now is the reporting functionality, publishing a report in Opera and that kind of information that we use on a daily basis. So by now you'd be aware of the publisher screen that you get when you run a report in Opera. It allows you to run your report to screen, to print it to file or to email. In addition, in the report layout, if the drop-down box exists, you can now select to run the report to Excel effectively, and it would throw that out in an Excel format for you. To view the details and the reporting in our nominal accounts, we go into the maintenance area into accounts, and in the action button, go and find F12 to view the account. It brings up our account view. By selecting one of them, it shows us our transactions, and by selecting further, it will show us the information where those transactions come from. It's important to remember when you look at the screen in Opera, always have a look at the little printer icon at the bottom, because there might be hidden reports, as we call them, that sits behind the data, just allowing you to print the information that you see very quickly directly to a PDF report. But also remember that on these screens, when you look at it, you can right click and copy the data and drop that in an Excel file, if that's an easier way for you to manage and look at your data. Have a quick look at that. So our maintenance accounts, we can go and view, or just use F12. We immediately get our account view broken down into periods and years where the information has been posted and coming from. I can click on a single period and therefore it gives me the information that sits behind there. And if I click once more, it actually shows me the journal that has generated the information that I'm looking at. This is where I want to mention the hidden report. So I can use the icon and I can use any of my formats here to look at the hidden report behind there, which in this instance really is just the journal that's posted there. But I can also, like I said to you, use the right click, use the copy data functionality and go open an Excel file and paste it in there and use the information as I need to in there. So, reports. Well, we've got a whole host of reports that gives us information about our system and about what we've done. So our audit trail, the audit trail provides an option to select on year end and period. It defaults to current period, and you can choose whether to print for the year to date. It lists each account that you're using. Trial balance. Well, we all know what a TB is. It shows our transactions for the year and it should balance. Ledger summary, income and expenses. It shows us the income and expenses classes that we've set out for our nominal so we can report on those. Assets and liabilities, again, all these different classes we have set up, we can now report on them. Capital reserves. Journal reprint is the ability to reprint any of the journals that we've produced before. Unposted journals will list all the journals that we haven't posted yet that sits in that list view in the journal area. The budgets list will show us the budgets we've entered into our system. Chart of accounts, well, that is the layout of our whole nominal structure. And the nominal analysis, well, analyzes the nominal, and then we've got some notes. I want to go into Opera, run some of these reports, not all of them, because, I mean, essentially they are just reports and we all know how to run reports in Opera. So the trial balance, for example, gives me the ability to look at my information in different sequences. If it's a type and subtype information I want to look at, to and from which years I'm looking, from which periods I'm looking for, and how I'm looking at style. I'm just going to do that. I just want to throw something on a screen. And in actual fact, this is where I want to show you the Excel reporting working. I'm just going to put test there, override that, and publish. And what I'm expecting to happen is the system to run the report. Instead of opening a PDF reader with a PDF report, I'm hoping it opens Excel and gives me the report in an Excel format. Effectively, exactly what I would have seen on screen, but it just now is in an Excel format. And as I've run a TB, I'm pretty happy to see that my figures balance there and there. So somehow my demo system is okay. Some of the other reports briefly look at is the journal reprint, for example. If you need to go and find a journal that you should have printed, didn't find, can't remember information of, can't find anything of, you can come in here and you can just select the journal number if you know what it is, and it will show you the journal that's associated with that information. And the chart of accounts is really just a good place to have a look at the layout of your chart of accounts, how you've set it up, and how they all kind of fit in together. So you can see we've got our structure A, which is a fixed asset, but a subtype freehold buildings. And we've got our freehold buildings accumulated depreciation, which again is a fixed asset with subtype of freeholdings. But fixed assets could also have different subtypes, as you can see here, for equipment and for vehicle costs, etc. And an audit trail, last report I'm going to run, just gives us information of of an audit trail of information entered based on the selection that we've made. Again, I think very often our accountants are probably the ones that wants to see this information. It will just produce it for me in that kind of format. Of course, I could have run that to Excel as well if I needed to do that. Now, the very last thing I'm going to talk about in reporting is the view area. I'm just going to open up the view area and talk about it for a second. So in my drop-down box, when I open the view, I have some criteria I can select from, a year and period from and to. And then I've got the view area with a drop-down box. Now you would have recognized in the maintenance area we set some views up, and these are the views that you are seeing here. It will default to the one that's been set as default in the system, and give me the different levels that belongs to. In my criteria box area, I have some criteria I can select before I run my view. So like types and subtypes, I don't know, let's say I only want to see sales, for example. I can do so by that, and I can come in here and by clicking on the refresh button, it will now show me all the type 30 accounts that is in here, the sales accounts, and will show me the information I wanted to see. I can easily change my year and my periods here and refresh, and then it should show me a bit more information as I want. But the strength in this lies in, for example, in this view. So I've got a view here. I've set up, I want to see my year, then I want to see the periods that sits under that. I want to see the type, subtype, and account. I said I only want to see it for sales, but let's for now delete that out. Let's select code and description, and let's look at view and go and refresh my data. So what do I see? Well, my first level is 2023. I've only got 2023. Actually, that was stupid. Let's look at 2022 as well, a comparison. Refresh. Now I can see 2022 as well as 2023. What do I have under 2022? Well, the periods. So I've got period 1, 2, 3 to 12, and then I've got year period 1 to 5. Okay, so now I'm thinking this is not a very good comparison because it's 5 periods I've done this far in 2023. So let's go to our criteria and say let's only look at period 1 to period 5. In both instances. And now if I look at my figures or my values, I'm expecting only to see the first 5 periods. So for my 2 years, it's giving me a much better comparison because I can only look at my 2 years worth of values. But what if I go further and say, actually, I just want to see the sales for that period? I can do that. So now I can only see the sales. Interesting that you notice there were no values, no debits and credit values when I looked at everything, and that's correct because it effectively is my company accounts and trial balance that should balance to 0. So that's why there's no, you wouldn't have seen any figures in there. But the moment I only look at individual elements like the sales, for example, I can see that. But what if I say I want to look at sales as well as cost of sales? So now I should perhaps more see profit ideas. So now I can see what's happened. On the debit side, it's moved over there because I have both sales and cost of sales against each of them. And in this instance, my cost of sales were much higher than my sales, which is why it's sitting here on the debit side. Further to that, within my, let's just get a nominal like that out. No, let's just get an account out. In my action button, I have the ability to look at charts. So I could produce different charts, bars, whatever I want for the information I'm looking at. I can copy this data and drop it in an Excel file. it will just put what I can see there in the file. The history, well, it shows me the history of any of this information, but as you can see, I can double click on that, and I can double click on that, and as before, it will take me right down to the bottom level of transaction. So it is a very good interrogation tool for anybody to use when you want to look at your accounts. I personally use mine in our organization as my profit and loss because I've got it set up as such, and therefore when I look at it, I know where the sales are, I know what the company is doing, and it's a really good overview. But it also allows me to go and look further to have a look at what information has built up for the sale, for example, that I sit in there. And as you can see, there's lots of transactions that's made up those sales. So this is a very, very, very good area to use in the system because it's so flexible and allows you to really look at your data in a way that suits you, I believe. So we've looked at our views, and that really takes kind of care of the reporting aspect of the nominal ledger. Now, I've spoken quite a lot. I think we've come to the end of what I wanted to show everybody. I hope you've learned something new. However, any questions, any observations, anything that you might want to know more about, anything I've missed? Please feel free to open your microphones and ask anything. No, if not, then I want to say, please keep an eye out. Most of you know by now, and I think most of you have already pre-booked the next webinars. Next one is coming up on the 25th of May. So have a look in the customer zone on o-a-sys website. And the next one is on sales pipeline management, or CRM as we call it in Opera, on the 25th of May. So please come and have a look. So thank you very much for joining me this morning,